Welcome to the Incredibly Human podcast. Today we're doing something a little bit different. We're doing a Zoom podcast. And today we've got Olivia with us, who's an ICU nurse. Thank you for being here.
Glad to be here.
A little backstory. Olivia worked with my wife, Callie. They're both ICU nurses, and we're just trying to keep up to date with what's going on with COVID and everything. So let's just hop into it. COVID has come back in another full wave. And in some areas, it's actually worse, even with vaccinations and everything rolling out. What are you experiencing at your hospital?
It's definitely worse at our hospital this time around than it was ever before. We've experienced much more numbers, and it happens so much quicker. This time it happened within a matter of a couple weeks. It just boomed. We went from having 2, 3 COVID patients in the ICU at a time to the entire ICU being filled, and then we were making a whole nother ICU just to have beds for them.
Mm-hmm.
We're running out of ventilators off and on, and yeah.
Yeah. So I know from the last wave last year, it was kind of like that. You had to put in another ICU unit and negative pressure rooms and more ventilators. And so basically, do you feel like this wave is different? You can tell a difference between the previous wave, or?
I feel like it's different just because we had already gone through it, and I think a lot of us thought hopefully it was over, at least the magnitude of how many patients were on the ventilator and all the death that we were seeing.
Mm-hmm.
I think a lot of us had hoped that it was, over for the most part. And so it coming back again has just been hard. I feel for me it's been harder emotionally this time, because before we didn't know what we were getting ourselves into. This time we knew what was coming. So we were scared before it even happened. As it was starting to happen, we were scared. This time around, I've felt much more anger and frustration than I did last time. A lot of it is coming from, I think, the people and the families are burnt out more this time.
Mm-hmm.
People have been hearing about it for so long, and everybody wants it to be over.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like the denial is more real this time. The denial in the families and the patients that this is still a real thing.
Yeah. No, I know. There was a little bit of a relief. At one point, I think y'all's hospital, when Callie was still there, you had like maybe one patient that was COVID, and it was like, it's past, it's moving on. Vaccines are rolling out, people are getting it, herd immunity, all this stuff. So maybe it's working. Maybe we're seeing the light at the end of the tunnel, and then next thing you know, within a month or so, it came back in full force. And are you seeing any different in terms of like your patients and their symptoms, or does it look the exact same?
They're younger this time. We're seeing people in their 30s, 40s, well, some in their 20s, even, but a lot of people in their 30s, in their 40s, we didn't see that as much before. It happened, but it's like the majority of our patients are 40s, 50s. A good amount of them are in their 30s. Some we get in their 20s, and most of these people aren't coming off the ventilator alive.
Right.
Just like before, but before they were at least a little bit older.
Right.
Not moms and dads with children still at home.
Yeah.
So
is that taking a little bit more toll whenever you're seeing it's happening to younger people?
Definitely. It's scary. It's very scary. And it's hard to see these people suffering and people losing their loved ones, but it's scary as a 30-year-old.
Right.
That, before it was kind of like, well, I'm young, I'm healthy. I do the kind of the same thing as a lot of the population does. I'm young, I'm healthy, I should be okay. Well, now it's like, well, maybe I won't be.
Right.
You never know.
Yeah. What's frustrating you the most out of this one?
Honestly, family members. um, People, beforehand, I felt like people were praising the healthcare workers. There's a lot less appreciation, and I'm not in this for the appreciation, but I feel like it's gone 360,
Hmm.
and we're almost being blamed some of the times. And we do have times where family members just think that it's our fault that we're killing their loved one,
Hmm.
that we're the reason that they're dying. And that's hard to do what we do every day and see everything that we're seeing. We're exhausted. We don't want these people to die.
Hmm.
We don't want these people hurting. And then to get blamed for it or told that we could have done more, you're not doing enough. It's
Where do you think that's coming from? Why do you think that they're blaming you?
I don't know, possibly just media. I'm not real sure. I think that a lot of people are convinced still or hoping that it's fake, that it's not real, but it is. So I'm not real sure
Yeah.
where they're getting it.
Do you think it has anything to do with, a lot of people that are getting it now? Well, first, let me ask you this: Are the majority of your patients vaccinated or unvaccinated?
Unvaccinated, definitely. The, so the ones on the ventilator, they've been keeping track Baylor wide, so system wide. And currently, 97% of the patients on the ventilator are unvaccinated.
Hmm.
And last time I looked, it was a couple weeks ago that this was sent out, but of all the COVID patients, period, just in the hospital, like 92% of them were unvaccinated. And then 93% in the ICU were unvaccinated.
Hmm.
97% on the ventilator, unvaccinated.
When vaccines rolled out, we rolled out with different ages and different groups and stuff first, but now it's to the point where if you want the vaccine, you're going to get the vaccine. And so a
Right.
lot of people that wanted it and trust it, they've gotten it. The people who don't necessarily trust it or don't feel like they should get it, they're the ones who aren't getting it. Do you think that plays a role with why they might be blaming you is because,
Absolutely.
they're also the people who don't really trust the vaccine?
That's actually a very good point. Yeah. I mean, definitely. It's probably just the mindset of the people.
When Callie talks to me about it, she often describes it as just kind of this helpless feeling as a nurse because really nothing is working.
Right.
Especially when they get to a certain point and they're on the ventilator, it's almost, the outcome is always the same. Do you feel that
Right.
sense of helplessness?
I do. Yeah. And because like you said, that she said, once they get to us in ICU, they are on the ventilator. Like there's so many COVID patients right now that unless they're on a ventilator, they're not going to be in the ICU. Basically, we're full to the brim with ICU ventilator or with COVID ventilators, and yeah, at that point, it's like, well, let's pray for them.
Right, right.
that's that's the only other thing we got.
Yeah. And I know some of that, what's also kind of frustrating is there's a lot of people who are saying that there's these other therapeutics that work, and they're just not being used. Do you feel like you have
Oh yeah.
people who are mentioning that to you?
Oh, absolutely,
Yeah,
absolutely. Ivermectin
yeah.
for one. People definitely think that that's a drug of choice. We've even had a patient or a family member whose whose spouse was on the ventilator, and he was definitely not going to make it. Since has passed, but she was trying so hard, bless her heart, and just wanted everything done that she pretty much demanded the doctor try ivermectin.
Hmm.
And it, and at that point, even though it really wasn't recommended, it's like, well, okay, well, we've done everything else, so he did it. But so what I'm getting at though is that, like, we have family members or patients almost demanding it, just do it. The ivermectin one is the one that gets to me. It's for parasites
Right.
in livestock.
But I think that's, there's just so much. people just don't know what to believe. You have so many people are out there advocating it. There's even doctors and nurses who are saying that this stuff works. The ivermectin is saving people's lives and all this other stuff. And so, when these videos are going around and people are hearing that, and they're hearing it from nurses and
Yeah,
doctors, you know, they're definitely going to have that why aren't we doing that with these patients kind of mentality. So I don't know what the answer is to that, besides
yeah.
just trying to reinform people to the best of your ability. But there just hasn't been enough out there to prove any of this is working other than the vaccines, I guess. There's also a nurse shortage, and that's been something a lot of people have been talking about. There's a bed shortage. What do you think is causing the nurse shortage?
We're tired. We're exhausted.
Yeah,
Nobody wants to do this anymore. I don't want to do it anymore.
yeah,
and I loved nursing before COVID, but I mean, I don't really have a whole lot of other option, and I also don't want to just leave. I don't
right.
want to give up on it, but we're tired.
Mm-hmm.
It's a terrible job to have to do right now.
Yeah, yeah. Do you? Yeah, a lot of people are blaming it though on nurses not wanting to get vaccinated. Do you know many nurses who just don't want the?
No, I personally don't know very many. I knew several that had not gotten it up to recent times, because they were hesitant for
Which
the
is
lot of,
fair.
right, a lot of the same reasons a lot of people had it. They were hesitant. They weren't sure about the long-term effects. And I mean, in the very beginning, I was too. It
Mm-hmm.
didn't take me too long to decide to go ahead and get it, but I don't know of anyone personally that decided to just not get it. I did know one person that almost decided not to get it, but
Mm-hmm.
then ended up doing it.
So, with a lot of people are saying that's why nurses are quitting, that's not necessarily what you've experienced.
No, not what I've
Do
experienced.
you? Are there nurses that have quit just because they're exhausted and they're burnt out and they're dealing with trauma?
Yeah, there's at least left and went
Yeah.
somewhere else, did something else.
How close to burnout are you? I mean, you've kind of already said it a little bit, but
Uh, yeah, I'm pretty close.
yeah.
I'd definitely say I'm already burnt out. So I'm just showing up as a body, basically,
Mm-hmm.
and just going with the motions. Definitely, probably not dealing with it in healthy ways. Just
Right.
zoning out, not zoning out like not focusing, but cutting off my emotions the best I can before I get there.
Right.
Not trying to talk to patients too much, like before they're on the ventilator, or their family members. I honestly try not to build too much of a rapport because it hurts every time, and I hate to be insensitive, but if I don't protect myself in some kind of way, then I will burn out and not be able to be there to take care of them.
I mean that's the thing too, and something that me and Callie have been dealing with is just it's just a constant thing. There's no break. Every single day you go into the ICU, it's the same story. It's
Yeah,
people who are living their last moments, and it's another reason why, like, I think it's important to continue to have these conversations and talk about it, and um, because we've got to come out on the other side to where this just isn't the case anymore. I mean, you guys are experiencing so much in terms of trauma and just I don't know. It's frustrating, and I something that I've been thinking about is a lot of where my frustration is, and I'm sure yours is too, is just being frustrated with the fact that it's not ending and it could end. Do you feel like some of that frustration is
I absolutely do. I I've always tried to be an open-minded person and understanding of other people's decisions, and I still feel like I am for the most part. There's this part of me too that's just mad for people not getting vaccinated. And again, I hate to be that way because we do all have a choice and it's our body and our right and stuff, but it's just hard to go into work and watch these people dying day after day,
mm-hmm,
knowing that there was a prevention.
right?
And knowing also that most of us, the majority of us, get all of our vaccines already, anyways.
Hmm.
There are some people that just in general don't do vaccines, anti-vaxxers, but the majority of us have vaccinated all of our children, are already all thoroughly vaccinated, fully vaccinated. But this one, they just are refusing. It just kind of blows my mind personally.
Yeah.
But I know
Well,
that's a topic for controversy too.
right. Yeah. Well, I think the frustration is warranted. I found myself getting really frustrated when I see certain posts or social media, or I hear somebody say this. And the frustration isn't because I'm wanting to oppose that person. It's not
Right.
like I'm just looking for conflict. The
Exactly.
frustration is coming out of something much deeper in that.
It is.
It's a frustration because I know what you guys are experiencing, and I'm sick of it. I'm sick of Callie having those days. I'm sick of y'all having those days, and so you know, I I don't think that we should be the bad guys for being frustrated and voicing that frustration. Um, and I also don't think we got to vilify people who are doing it in the opposite way. They're frustrated with the medical community and they're frustrated with all the dialogue and not knowing who to trust. It's more so my frustration with the misinformation.
Yes. I'm
More,
definitely
I'm
frustrated.
more frustrated with that than I am you choosing not to vaccinate, yourself or your child because you're unsure. I get that. I understand that you're wanting to protect yourself, but
Yeah.
it's the misinformation that led us to that belief that I'm just frustrated with, and I think it's warranted. Um, so, I mean, I don't want to get too heavy or bogged down or anything, but what moments are you dealing with right now that are just really sticking with you?
It's just the same general, just every time I come into work, people are dead.
Yeah,
Not one specific moment, really, because they're all kind of the same now.
yeah,
They all roll together, but just either watching them die, trying to save them from death, or just coming back in knowing that they've died.
hmm,
Just death,
yeah,
death, death, death.
yep. No, and it's hard too because as somebody who's not seeing it personally, it's hard to really, watch my spouse go through that. And it's also hard to relate to it because I have yet to experience it. And I think for the most part, all of us on the outside of the ICU, we don't see and experience what you guys are seeing every single day. So for us, it's very easy to turn off COVID, and it's very easy to kind of just move on to the next thing that's happening in life. Whether it's seeing a movie or whatever. Um, but for y'all, it's something that you're carrying with you. Do you feel anxiety like days leading up to the next shift? And
I do. I'm feeling anxious now. I have to go into work in a couple hours. And so I'm already like, what, what am I walking into today?
mm-hmm,
Because we've also been, we've got RAC nurses, government nurses in again to help, but they don't always seem to know what they're doing. I don't know. And are we allowed to cuss on this podcast?
yeah, no, you're definitely allowed to cuss.
I feel like I'm walking into a shit show every time I go into work
Yeah,
because we've also gone into disaster mode where we're taking an ICU nurse typically only takes two patients. We're taking up to three. And so you know, and these are ventilated, highly sick patients.
mm-hmm,
It's hard to take care of two of them at a time, let alone three. Um, and then dealing with half of our staff not even knowing what they're doing. Like we're having to train them. And so that adds to the frustration too. Just
yeah,
being completely overwhelmed, lack of resources when we're at work, it all adds to the stress and to the frustration.
yeah. Well, I really hope that we turn a corner really soon and it moves on to being just a completely different situation. I really don't know how we get there unless people, vaccinate, or if we just develop a really good herd immunity. But um, yeah, it looks like we're kind of losing signal a little bit, so we'll probably just wrap this up.
Yeah, it's cutting out a little bit on.
Okay, well, I appreciate you, keeping us updated with what's going on and sharing a little bit of what you're experiencing. But again, I hope something changes and we see the light at the end of this tunnel.
Me too.
Yeah. Well, good luck tonight, and yeah, just I don't know. I don't know what to offer nurses anymore,
what
honestly.
you're what you're doing is a lot. This is why I always want to participate.
Yeah, cool. Well, I appreciate it a lot, so thanks for hopping in on this.
Since I hear, appreciate it too, though. Thank you.
Okay, see ya. Bye.